This includes I can never say that word.
Philanthropic.
It's philanthropy. Partnership program and career pathways, an educational initiative to help develop our future workforce. In collaboration with Hawaii's corporate, education, and startup communities, Tiffany is helping to guide and develop the next phase of external affairs for Elemental. Prior to Elemental, Tiffany led the marketing at Rehab Hospital of the Pacific End Foundation in Honolulu and for the Financial Services Institute of Australasia in Sydney, Australia. Most recently, she worked at Anthology Marketing Group, managing client relationships across all major sectors in Hawaii. Tiffany is an active member of several educational boards, including board chair of Ho'ola School, yep, and Ho'ola Foundation for Education, and a board member for Hawaii Kids Can. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration degree with a concentration in Operations and Technology Management from Boston University in Massachusetts. So welcome, Tiffany. And I asked what goals she's working on, and then she is really passionate about the work that she's doing, and is just working to elevate the conversation about our ecology and environmental awareness. So welcome, Tiffany.
You want the video first or the presentation?
Put the video on first.
Okay, I'll just let you press play.
All right. Hello, everybody. You know, I like to start off here with a video because I think that it's just a really nice way for me not to be speaking, but for you to learn about our work. So let's kick it off with this video. I guess let me know if you can't hear it for any reason. Oh, actually, yep, I can't hear it either. Jenny, is it supposed to, we can see it moving. It just,
oh, the sound's on.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Deep down, I have gratitude.
Because every day I still am waking and connecting with those who aren't sidelined by a monumental challenge. Instead, they are rising to meet it.
These are the ones who know that environmental and economic revivals are only possible when they are equitable.
The ones who don't just believe in miracles, but are creating them every day. The ones who aren't discouraged by an old system, but are changing it.
My inspiration is the same now as ever.
It's to see this place,
our home, transformed.
And I am moved most by those pioneers not concerned with navigating this generation alone,
but those standing with urgency for the generations to come. They know the stakes.
And that the great turning is upon us.
Helping us believe in what can be.
The world is changing.
Because we are changing it.
What transforms a place?
It is to dig into a place.
And regenerate.
And rise.
We can build a flexible
We
grid.
can empower cities with data.
We can end carbon emissions from cows.
We can help everyone go electric.
We can grow regenerative agriculture.
We can slash the time it takes to detect water toxins.
We can build more livable cities.
We can accelerate the number of electric vehicles on the road.
We can trace water pollution to the source.
We can feed more and waste less.
We can predict the risks of climate change.
The world is changing.
Because we care to change it. Can we do the shaka? Yeah.
That is my favorite video. And a lot of the folks that were featured in there are founders from our portfolio, which I'll tell you a little bit more about. Okay, slideshow, here we go. I just want to say thank you so much for having me here today. I was telling Jenny earlier that my dad was actually a Rotarian for the Lahula Club. So definitely familiar with the organization, and I've been able to do a couple of these talks around town at different clubs, and I'm always just in such awe by all the work that you all are doing in the community. And it's so amazing to see your month of activities up here. So keep doing all of your great work. And this is a really basic slide, but you know, like when I talk to different groups, everybody comes in with a really different understanding of what climate change is. And I feel like the easiest way that I have heard it talked about is just like the earth has a fever. And if you think about, you know, like yourself having a fever, and if your body temperature changes just like 1 or 2 degrees, and how serious that is when that happens, that's basically what's happening with the earth right now, right? With all of the emissions that are being released, with all of the activities that we're all doing every day. So the earth is warming, and this is why we're doing the work that we're doing. So a little bit about Elemental Accelerator. We started back in 2009, back when we legislated our intent to become the first state in the nation to flip our economy off of fossil fuels, so the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative. And at that time, we saw that there was a real gap in how we were going to reach our goals, right, to flip our economy by 2045. One of the levers that we saw as a great opportunity was technology. But at that time, there weren't a lot of people that were focused on resourcing the climate technologies needed that could really get us to be off of our reliance on fossil fuels, right? So then came Elemental Accelerator. Or back then, we weren't even called Elemental Accelerator. A couple iterations ago, we were called Energy Accelerator, but we were really seeded as a program originally within the Department of Energy. And at that time, we were just basically doling out $1 million grants to energy companies in Hawaii to try to solve for this issue. After about 6 months or a year of doing that, our CEO at the time, who is now still our CEO, John Lippert, you know, she was like, this isn't working, and I don't want to keep doing this if this is how we're going to do it. So took a pause. She travels around the US for about 6 months or so, talking to anybody that would talk to her about applying the accelerator model to climate technologies. And if you think about it, at that time, over 10 years ago, people thought she was crazy, because the entire reason why an accelerator or incubator works, right, is because it's typically accelerating like software. So very low cost. Basically, if you have a computer, you can scale a company, right? But with climate technologies, it's also known as like hard tech or tough tech, because not only do you have the software component, but there's usually like some really big like capital like expenditure like for hardware, right? Infrastructure is needed. So people thought she was crazy, but she did it anyways. And now I believe, have the largest portfolio of climate technology companies in the world. So we have here, I think we're at 135 companies, and we're soon to be over 150 companies, because every year we announce a new cohort of 15 to 20 companies that we work with and support. And I'll share with you how we work those companies in a little bit. But it's really amazing. And I think it's something to be proud of, because we're an organization, a nonprofit that started right here in Hawaii. And this next slide, I think, will be, oh, I think it went one back. Ooh. Oh, so this is just a quick snapshot of some of the goals that we're working towards. I'm sure a lot of these look really familiar to all of you. So when we're looking at what companies to support, we really use this as, you know, like our North Star of like, is this company helping us to advance our goals in this way? And we invest or support 5 key sectors. And, you know, these are the sectors that are like the largest contributors to emissions. So the verticals that we work in are energy, food and agriculture or nature-based solutions, water, mobility and transportation, and circular economy or built environment. So now the fun part, right? These are some of the companies that we've actually worked with, and a lot of these are right here in Hawaii. So when you think about the sectors that we work in, we take a really holistic approach to how we tackle climate change. And you can see that, you know, across the sectors, they're all so interconnected. Like you can't have any water thing without talking about like food and ag or its connection to energy. And same with like mobility and circular economy. So when we work with companies can come into our portfolio in one of two ways. So I said earlier, you know, we accept 15 to 20 companies every single year. They apply to us through either our strategy track, which is kind of the typical services that you would get from an accelerator incubator, which is tailored coaching. So we help companies with like customer discovery, sales and operational scale up, marketing, messaging, fundraising, all of those startup-y things. And we fund companies $300,000 to go through that tracker program with us. Our second track is, I think, what makes us really unique. So our second track is called our project track. And that is really, really focused on actually deploying projects in communities that need them the most. And we consider those communities frontline communities. So those that are experiencing climate change first and worst, but will typically be the last many times to actually benefit from many of these technologies, right? Because of socioeconomic status, like access, whatever that is. So we consider ourselves, you know, an organization that really works at that nexus of social innovation or innovation and social equity. So with our project track, we'll help fund a company about $600,000 to deploy a project in partnership with a customer. So a customer can be a utility like HECO, it could be with a solar company, it could be a school like or University of Hawaii, just basically anyone that could use the solution. A couple examples here of projects that we've done. The top one is a company called Amp Air. So they're a hybrid electric airplane. And the project that we did with them is we funded basically a cargo route for them to fly between Hana and Kahului to basically get their next level of FAA certification. So with that project, we worked with Mokulele Airlines and Department of Transportation, and Amp Air became the first hybrid electric airplane company in the world to get that level of market certification. We also have a couple of other aviation companies in our portfolio. Another one is called Zero Avia, and they're working on hydrogen electric aviation. And then Dimensional Energy is working on hydrogen fuel for airlines. So we have everything from airplanes to like electric vehicle charging stations. It's a really wide breadth within just if you're looking in the mobility space. The bottom one here is how many of you are familiar with FarmLink Hawaii? Do you work for FarmLink? I was like, I could see that look on your face. Yeah, so FarmLink Hawaii is also in our portfolio, and Rob and the team are such a joy to work with, and we've known Claire with her time at Ma'o Farms, but it was really interesting because we were working with FarmLink in 2020. Y'all remember that year? And you know, I think when they were applying to our program at that time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you guys were in like a lot of restaurants, like working with a lot of restaurants, and yeah, very commercial. And Rob was really interested in going more residential, right? And with the pandemic, I mean, your demand for residential went up like 3,000%. So to be able to work with a company like FarmLink, making really deep impacts in Hawaii for the food and ag space is it's why we do what we do. So yeah, those are just a couple of examples here in Hawaii. And we truly believe that, you know, technology brings half of the solution, but really it's the community that brings the other half. You know, it's really easy to get these technologies to like the top 1-2% of people that can afford it. But really in this climate transition, it's bringing everyone along, right? So that's why we really focus on deploying projects in frontline communities. And aside from our the startup portfolio side of our work, we also have a bunch of wraparound services that we've created to really try to elevate the climate conversation and just the services for our startups and entrepreneurs. So about 1.5 years ago, we spun out something called the Policy Innovation Lab. And that's really focused on helping to bring down the barriers for entrepreneurs and innovation, not just at the local level, but at the national level as well. So it's really, really great to see that Congress recently passed the IRA bill, you know, which is monumental, absolutely monumental for climate. And just would love to see more things like that happening. We also spun out a venture fund. So I mentioned earlier that Elemental is a nonprofit. So a lot of times, you know, as much as we would love to support everybody that we meet or that applies to our program, we get about 600 to 800 applicants every single year, and we only select 15 to 20. And they're phenomenal founders and startups that we get to meet. But because of our model, sometimes technologies or solutions might be competitive with someone that we already have in our portfolio, you know, so we can't work with them in that way. But the venture fund really helps us to be able to double down on founders with really, really great ideas that are creating a lot of impact in the space. And that fund is about 80 million right now. So I think it's the largest fund to come out of Hawaii. We also do a lot in the career pathways space. So like one of our passions is inspiring climate careers. When I first started about 3 years ago now, we maybe had like about a dozen interns that we would support at either Elemental or portfolio companies. And this year, we jumped to 72 interns, not just at Elemental and our portfolio companies, but our broader ecosystem of like-minded organizations. So if any of your organizations are interested in hosting an intern, that's something that we could talk to you about as well. We adopted this program called EDICT. So the acronym stands for Empowering Diverse Climate Talent. And basically 2 of our founders during the pandemic really had like kind of this aha moment about like how they just didn't see other people working in the climate space that looked like them. Every single time they would go to a conference or like be in a meeting or a room somewhere, just nobody looked like them, you know? And I think we all know that diversity of thought is really, really important and, you know, only makes things better. So they started an initiative called EDICT and we absorbed it. And now it's a pledge that companies take. And for our internship program, it stands for Empowering Diverse Climate Talent. So like-minded companies can take the pledge and then we'll provide a lot of the programming while you are providing the actual like internship like work experience. And that happens in the summer every year. So that's a little plug there. But basically, I think, you know, you can really see that we really work to embed equity and access at the foundation of everything that we do. Oh yeah. And this is our internship program, and you can see all the logos there are logos of companies that hosted interns this year. And then this is just a real quick overview of the tracks that I was describing earlier. A question that we always get is, do you take equity in the companies that you support? And the answer is yes. In that way, we are a bit like a typical VC. We take about 1 to 3%, depending on the company. And if, you know, like at the event of like an acquisition or exit, the proceeds basically come back to us as a contribution or donation for the services that we rendered while they were working with us. And then this is a little bit about just some of the frameworks that we have around equity. We have something called equity in and equity out. So we really, when companies come into our portfolio, we really share with them, you know, all of these frameworks and basically like a playbook to really think about equity at the beginning of their startup journey, as opposed to it being an afterthought. And, you know, you really see the difference in their work, the culture of their team, and just the general like output since we've been doing that. So I'm happy to share a little bit more or in a follow-up email or something about some of the frameworks if that's something that you're interested in. Jenny, quick time check, because I know that
6:43.
Okay, awesome. These are just a couple of things that we look at when selecting a company for a cohort. So is the solution locally deployable and globally scalable? You know, we are a nonprofit, but we're kind of like a nonprofit VC. So we do look for, even though we're impact investors, we do look for like, what is the potential of this? Like, is this a 10x return type of thing? How financially healthy are they? Will they make it through our program? Will they have enough runway? Are they actually solving an urgent environmental challenge? So a lot of times we see really great companies, but they're not necessarily solving a climate issue. How sticky is this, is the solution? You know, a lot of times like seeing is believing. So we know that if we can help them deploy, this could really like help catapult them to get more customers. And this one I think is really, really important. The team makeup. How coachable is the team? Are they thinking about equity? How diverse is their team? What is their intention around diversity, equity, and inclusion? So those are just a few of the things on our rubric. And this is, oh, did you have a question?
Yeah, where does your capital come from?
Great question. And you know what, I'll just keep it on this slide for a little bit. So we have basically like 3 main buckets of funders. And so our first tranche of funding really came in through government, through the Department of Defense. So they funded us basically like 30 million every 5 years. And we're like up on our 3rd tranche of funding with them to deploy these climate projects. Because as you can imagine, you know, they want to make sure that they can create more resilient environments for their assets as well, right? And then we also have corporate funding. So we have partners like Amazon and Microsoft, Autodesk, Ford, as well as, you know, a lot of the local companies that you see on this slide here. And then the 3rd bucket of funding is philanthropy. So in 2017, we partnered with an organization called Emerson Collective. So I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with them, but if you think of Steve Jobs, so his widow, Lorraine Powell Jobs, that's her philanthropic and investment platform. So she is also the chair of our board. And with our partnership with Emerson Collective, in 2017, that's when we opened up our 2nd headquarters in California. So now a little over half of our team is actually based out in the Bay Area. Any other questions?
So the funding, is it like a donation or are they Are you investing their funds? Or?
It's a donation. Yeah. Yeah. Since we're a nonprofit, all of that funding is essentially almost like a grant sponsorship or like donation. And this is just a little bit of what, like how our program looks. So we usually open up our applications early in the spring and close them about a month or so later. And then we really take the entire summer to do our due diligence. And then we announce our newest cohort in the fall. So it's interesting. One of the ways that we select our companies is after they've kind of gone through like our internal process, and over half the team is basically heads down looking at companies during this time, reading through every single application. I once saw an application that only had emojis in it, but we had to look at it. So we look at every single one. But we also bring the community in towards the end of the process too. So we have something called community marketplaces where we share basically a list of the finalists and ask you know, like these sector experts and others, like, what do you think of these companies? Like, do you think that this is something that's deployable in Hawaii? So yeah. So we will be announcing our newest cohort in the next couple weeks. So if you're not signed up to our newsletter, it's just elemental.com/newsletter. Highly encourage you to do so because I'm really, really excited about this next batch of companies.
Earlier, I saw that anyone can apply, right? And you don't have to be located in Hawaii, but where are most of the companies from? Are they like local companies or
Yeah, good question. We're a global accelerator, so they come from all over the world. Naturally, a lot of them are kind of like California. We get a lot of California based, but what's really cool is, especially with the pandemic, we're seeing a lot more distribution of where companies are headquartered. And I love that. Like, I love if I'm seeing a company like out in the middle of Kentucky, you know, because like those are companies that are in the community and understand those pain points that aren't just like incubating, you know, like somewhere in the Bay Area. So yeah, we see them from all over, a lot California. About 10% of our portfolio is Hawaii based. Yeah. Guess we can keep taking questions from here. Any other questions?
I went through the Clean Tech Open Accelerator a few years ago. How do you say that one differs? Like, what's the differentiation?
I'm not super familiar about what programming is for that one, but happy to chat with you about it, and I can try to see what I can tell you from there. Yeah.
So the ownership stake that you take in the companies, it said donation on there. So like if they did once or something, they would basically just be donating ownership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we take equity in the form of typically like safes or warrants.
1 to 3%.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually at first we weren't taking equity, and our companies were like, you really should, because you guys are helping us so much, like you should. So that was something that, you know, that was feedback that we were getting from the companies that we were working with.
Are the companies remote when you work with them, or do they come out to Hawaii?
Yeah, great question. So we do not require companies to make any type of move to work with us. We do have 3 in-person engagements that we do require them to be with us for. 2 of those 3 are in Hawaii. So kickoff week, which is when we announce our new cohort. So it's like our new portfolio members come, and basically we do like a week of programming with them just to like get oriented. And then our next touch point is event called Interactive. So that's our investor focus event in the Bay Area in San Francisco, typically. And then the last one is our CEO and Leadership Summit. And we've been doing that one in Hawaii because, of course, who doesn't want to come to Hawaii? But yeah, that's a really, really fun
time to get the entire portfolio and all of the founders together. And it's really like amazing what happens during that time, because if you think of like being in the shoes of a founder, it's like, it's so stressful, right? Like you're just trying to stay alive. So to be able to commiserate and just like have those shared learnings between your peers is a really special time.
I think there's a question in
Oh
chat
yeah.
too.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Lindsay. Lindsay is the one that first reached out to me through our mutual friend, Pia. I'm sorry you broke your foot. I hope you have a speedy recovery.
What would you say is the most successful or top 3 successful businesses you guys have worked with? What were those impacts?
You know, I don't know the exact like dollar amounts for exits, but I can tell you like some of the companies, like one of the companies that I'm really excited about, surprisingly, is all about concrete. So Carbon Cure is a company that we actually did projects here in Hawaii with, and I think all of the major concrete producers now have the capability to embed their solution. And so basically what they do is they can trap carbon into concrete. So we partnered with Hawaii Gas and I think Island Concrete. I can't remember the name right now, but basically we did a side-by-side pour of like regular concrete and Carbon Cure concrete out on the west side, like in Couple A. And we partnered with Department of Transportation for that. And from that found that the Carbon Cure concrete was not only greener, but it was stronger and it was at cost parity. And from that, we created a resolution called the Honolulu Resolution, which then encouraged all new city and county builds to have to spec out this carbon infused concrete. And that ended up passing. And that year, it just so happened that the Conference of Mayors was being held in Honolulu. So over 100 mayors from all around the country were there, and they all unanimously passed that resolution in their jurisdictions as well. So it's like looking at the impact that Honolulu or Hawaii can have, you know, like in this space. Like we also worked with California after we legislated our intent to flip our economy off of fossil fuels. We helped them with their bill to do the same, you know? So Hawaii really is a leader in this space, and it's just really cool to be able to be working on this at this time, because this is the time. The time is now.
So with the new bill in California that they're going to get rid of like all gas-powered cars, did you have any involvement in that? Or
I don't think we were working directly on that per se. No. But I mean, I feel like it's all kind of trickle down effect, right? With the work that we're doing.
Yeah. What do you see of the impact of the Emission Reduction Act and like the conversations you're having with your new cohort? And what
Yeah.
they take advantage of?
I mean, I think everyone's just kind of like really excited at the possibilities. What that looks like right now, we're not really sure, but I think it's moving all in the right direction. There's so many credits around EV, solar, battery, PV, all of that, you know? So I think it can only move us in the right direction. I think the key will be figuring out how to get the money and deploy it to folks that really, really need it. But luckily, like through like the Justice 40 initiative, where it's like at least 40% of the funds will be, you know, deployed in frontline communities, like that is definitely a step in the right direction as well.
Do you happen to know if you have any companies in Japan that you work with?
We don't have any startups in Japan. I actually have been meeting with like people from Japanese government a lot lately. I want Japanese companies to come into our portfolio. We did work with like the Japanese utilities, but yeah, nothing currently active. But if you have ideas, let me know.
I'll think about it. It seemed random, but I live in Tokyo.
Oh, nice.
That's why I was curious.
Yeah, there's so much interest. I think they're a little gun shy because of like the language barrier. Yeah.
I mean, that's okay.
Yeah. And so, but I really would love to, especially being in Hawaii, love to work with more Japanese companies. Yeah.
Are the participants have to be nonprofit as well?
No, so actually we don't typically work with nonprofits. So we work, or at least from our funding perspective, like for our startups, they have to be venture backed startups.
Also, they cannot even be a nonprofit.
Because of the way our funding, yeah.
So are you coming in on later rounds then, or just like what round are you typically involved?
Yeah, it varies. We consider ourselves a growth stage accelerator, but we do see like some pre-seed, seed companies. And I guess that's kind of our sweet spot is like seed to Series A. But we kind of like see the whole gamut depending on what they're trying to do, like through their project proposal.
So by the time they come to me, they're pretty much.
Yeah, they typically already have a couple of customers or deployments, and really so we like to say like we fund first of its kind projects. So like if they're applying for funding with us, it's kind of like what is going to be transformational about the funding that we're going to provide you. And it's like, would this project happen without us? And if the answer is typically yes, then it's like, we're so happy for you because you will do a lot of great things. But we like to look for companies that would otherwise have like a difficult time finding this capital.
What would you think will be difficult for some
people? Sometimes it's like not as obvious what their solution is or the impact is. And I think that statement might be a little outdated within itself because in the last like year or two, we've seen such a huge influx of capital in this climate space. But definitely like when we first started, even like 4 or 5 years ago, it was really hard to find project funding, for some of like the technologies that we're looking at. So yeah, I think it just depends.
How much of the program is, funding and just working with companies to get off the ground versus like helping them with branding or marketing or corporation or any of the,
Yeah. So the strategy track is where our coaching comes in. But we're also not, it really is coaching. Like we're not there to like do any of these functions. Like some other accelerators, you might be able to outsource like your legal or finance to them. Like we are not that. We will like help support, like try to connect you with people, but we're really there to help coach. And with like the project deployments, we're there to help project manage and make connections where we can. But the onus is really on the company to make it work and happen, which is why, like we try to look at, we don't accept companies like with less than 2 full-time employees, because there's just like no way that you can get through our program and run a company at the same time.
What's the difference between you guys other than climate focus compared to like Blue Startups, Sultan Ventures, or Monica?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we all talk to each other all the time. So outside of the climate, we're really focused on project deployment. Yeah. And then it's like MonaUp is more like CPG, Sultan. I mean, they're working really early, like with their pre-accelerator program. So that's like a lot of times before companies even have business plans, So like there's definitely like a continuum, which I think is really cool here in Hawaii. And Blue Startups, they do have like some climate companies, but they've historically been a lot more software focused. Yeah.
So somebody could essentially go through.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to happen. I think we're getting close. Yeah, and I love to see it. I love to see people do all those.
The business.
I can't say just yet because we didn't announce it yet. But look out in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Is there a past participants in your website?
Yeah, we have our entire portfolio on our website. Yeah, so you can take a look.
Without looking at it, I have like 3 more questions. The carbon free is revolutionary and building alternatives, especially here in Hawaii. Are you guys working with any hempcrete?
Not at the moment. Yeah, not at the moment.
It's another industry that would, it seems like a good figure. And then everybody seems to be really focused on solar and electric cars, but geothermal?
We do have a geothermal company called Fervo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fervo Energy. And I think they just had a really, really big raise. They haven't done work here in Hawaii, but I think they do more work in like Arizona, like Nevada area. I'm not super up to date on them, but happy to kind of.
Are they like a graduate or still in?
They're in our portfolio, but they're considered, I believe, like one of our alumni companies because we're not doing an active project with them at this time.
And my last question was same thing, electric cars is all the rage, but hydrogen cars.
Yeah.
Why is it not? And where are the people trying to make it happen? We have one station, one.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we do have like hydrogen aviation companies in our portfolio. I think it's a mix of like policy legislation and then just seeing a solution that really makes sense for Hawaii. And I know a lot of people are super, super jazzed about hydrogen in Hawaii and are working on it very, very actively. So
green hydrogen technology feels like it's so close. Like,
yeah, I think that getting the cost to where it's at parity is probably the biggest kicker.
Hydrogen is silly. If we could get to green, that would be great.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful.
Lots of different hydrogen colors. We have a really
literally.
Yeah, we have a cool deep dive on hydrogen on our website if you want to check it out. Yeah.
Do you do anything with like B Corp certification? I know it's something that's big in California, but I haven't really seen much of it here.
I think a couple of our companies might be B Corps, but it's not something that we actively like support them on.
So if you have companies that it sounds like primarily are struggling to find stages, isn't that kind of limit you to companies that are not the best sustainable? You know, like if they're having trouble getting funding and they're at the growth stage, they not good things about them?
Not necessarily. And I think, again, that comment might have been a little outdated. I think climate tech in general is not the easiest, space to get funded. I mean, it's really hard to fundraise. Just talk to people and you're going to hear 1,000 no's, like when you're out there asking for people to invest in your round. So I think the work in general is just hard, and to get to scale and commercialization is just difficult. So we're there to try to give them capital and support to help bring down those barriers to doing their work. Yeah.
Most investors are looking for like a 3-year return on their investment, and that's just not something that happens with a lot of climate tech.
Yeah.
Great discussion. We have to finish. 7:05. We want to respect everyone's time. But of course, I'm sure Tiffany can hang out if anybody wants to ask you any additional questions.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll just wrap for those of you who are on a time. But thank you. That was amazing.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
We'll be here so you guys can still hang out, eat, drink, talk to Tiffany. Yeah, ask her hard questions. Okay, so let's close out with the 4-way test. So the 4-way test are the things we think, say, or do. Repeat, well, say it with me. 1, is it the truth? 2, is it fair to all concerned? 3, will it build goodwill and better friendship? 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? 5, will it be friendly and fun? Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Whoa, we had so many questions today for you.
For those of you that park here that don't know, next door, they do validate your parking. They have a little machine on their desk that you can put it in and validate it.
Are you getting more
How many more?
Well, I didn't know about hydrogen. There are a lot of things I didn't know about and funding. And I was like, oh, you guys got government money?
I went to one of your but I think this was before you worked at Elemental, but this was like it was at Bishop Museum, like I think in 2018.
Yeah, Town Square. That's our Town Square event.
It was like so I don't even remember what happened there. I just remember Bishop Museum, and it was really pretty outside. And I don't even remember what happened.
Yeah, so that's when our new cohort gets announced.
Oh,
and we introduce them to.
Is it always at Bishop? I mean, Bishop Museum?
No, and we haven't done it. We haven't done. That was the last Town Square that we had. Was at Bishop Museum? Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, well, your presentation is really good. I think everyone was really interested because we usually only have nonprofits. So I think it's good to talk more about how businesses can actually make a difference. And concrete companies make so much money.
Well, everything uses concrete here.
Yeah, because like I mean, my job is to find like businesses in Hawaii that have a lot of investments already, and concrete companies have so much assets. So that's why when you said concrete, I was like, oh yeah, I know. That makes so much money.
Oh yeah, I heard that too. But lots of beautiful structures. Yeah. Money is economical is the challenge. And to do it at scale, like so tired. All over what's success on the crash that we're having? We are still not profitable. We are still using all that. So it's not cheap and easy to get local protein that needs to the cost of logistics in the last 8 months. Done a number on micro-thread supply chain, and it's killing our farmers, our ranchers, our food workers. The cost to do their business operations have doubled. The supply chain issues are causing them to have to change packages or switch labels or change the boxes that are being used. And another terrible thing that will probably be more maybe in our so there's a word with Spanish. Sand? No, right here we are in Hawaii. Global sand shortage of the sand that is needed for the right amount of soil to produce glass. So anything we buy in glass. It needs to be used. Like aluminum cans, infinitely recyclable. It doesn't do it all the time. You can recycle it over and over, and it never goes to glass degrades over time. Other metals degrade over time. Plastic, you don't know, recycling plastic failure, marketing, recycling plastic. It's a waste of WOs. Is fruitless and like we could be bringing our empty laundry detergent to the store. They're doing it the same way we go to bring it out, fill it. The refill movement needs to be. Oh, that's true. I was in Colombia like 2 weeks ago, and they're like bottles. Yeah, I was like, oh, where are you taking my bottle? And they're like, we're using this again. I was like, okay. Is everybody already farming? So A new shameless guerrilla marketing. Farmley, Hawaii, local grocery store. So pass it on. Put it on somebody's bench. So basically, I'm the merchandising manager, so I'm in charge of finding and locally made value-added products and finding them to make sure that they're safe throughout the state. So I work with chicks on White Island for pasture raised, solar powered. Yeah, that's cool. They're in Puna. So their farm is completely sustainable, off the grid, solar. The chickens are pasture raised, so the big important thing when you're looking at eggs, cage free. Oh, I never know this. I thought it was special. It's better than ones that don't put in them, but really pasture raised is like the little better. Thank you. Right now we're only doing recording, so Sunday, Mondays, Thursday, and Friday. So if you order, what's today? Tuesday, Thursday would be the earliest. And we do have a promotion right now. If you sign up, $30 off your first purchase. If you refer friends, like now with this is right now, you can refer as many people as you know, and it's $50 off for an free referrals. So it's kind of if you enjoy it, wireless, tell your friends, tell your family. We're the only company that does delivery that accepts EBT and SNAP benefits after customer service. So we're the individuals for transportation. Well, as not only local healthy groceries to their door, but it's so rewarding. And she's like, oh yeah, of course you do. Merchandising manager. I learned so much. So cleanups. Oh, you do? Oh, no, wait. Oh, it's not a waste of time. We need to start reducing the waste such less waste. I like to know how to audits, like look at every single product. I never thought about that. Tablets? It's like a little oh, I kind of like that. Rather than, I'm like, wow. I gotta look that up. And then Saturday, right? hotel, this restaurant is here too, you know, like getting that. I'm very good at no problem. Not that, that is one area that I'm pushing towards you and trying to work with.
Yes, especially for those of us who are really bad cooking.
We got some chili.
But I mean, like easy, like, you know,
For somebody who's in the kitchen, that's, there are kitchen. We have ramen broth, we have some noodles, we have a little bit of food, a bunch of veggies. You could really, there's broth, there's noodles, add whatever veggies you like. Or like, we have a lot of fruits, and the fruits generally with watermelon. We're the only island that had organic watermelon, which I think they've already sold out for the season, and they're saving their seeds. We're working with farmers to try and and I'm working with 3 different and the other one is yeah, very excited. Let me know. Of course, my email is just like, you know, with our marketing, director of marketing and engagement, salaries and benefits and how this can be run as too.
something that we do. We support a lot of people.
Which is a way that we
I've been trying to take this off like we offer this stuff it's been hard to find exactly. It's been hard to find those people that can do this.
Like you weren't done with it. We were delivering groceries. We were picking up pallets from the airport.
I didn't interrupt.
We should know about all the trouble we did.
Oh, yeah. But I get the vibe. It's kind of nice.
Got all those good ideas, get them out of your brain on paper. So, I did all of that. So, yeah, there's one night for which but whoa! And I was no. So, yeah. There was 4 people on the trip, and I really wanted, yeah, and I really didn't want to be told about like, yeah, lots of tips. And I did like, this is my second time, and I did almost nothing. Most of the stuff I did, and I'm pretty sure I could go and do. Yeah, like there was not a lot of, like there were a couple things, but yeah, I didn't. That was yeah. Well, yeah. So and then he flipped it. Because I can handle that. But I don't selling it. I know. Right now, I think I'm just listening to about years. Well, you probably grew up with like New York. Nice. There might have been, there's like this little pond wetland. And I'm like, there's like a little bridge that goes over the sand. There's supposed to be and I'm like thinking about air calculation. Yeah, and well, I'm going to wear the same dress that I wore while I was watching the wedding on Zoom. Very confusing, but I forgot about that. I would care about the like by myself, like Like they know enough.
I don't know, but I mean, Tim says someone stopped it.